Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a video where I will try to explain how I spot targets in DCS. It's primarily for use in the Su-25 and Su-25T because of those planes does not have the fancy sensor that the F-16 and F-18 and F-16 does. The A10A is also old school, if you like. Yes. Many people, when they are trying to spot targets in DCS, they are overloaded with impulses. They are overloaded with information. One way to filter off the information, to narrow it down, to help your eyes and brain to focus, is to use the onion mentality. That's why I have a onion here. Let's first go over in the broad terms and then I'll explain the steps afterward. First of all, you have taken off, you're flying towards the area. The target is the center of the onion. First layer, waypoint 5. You know the target is around waypoint 5. It can be 5 kilometers away from waypoint 5. It doesn't matter. Just say that the target is closest to waypoint 5. When I at waypoint 5, how can I peel off a layer? How can I get closer to the target visually, spotting wise? That is, at waypoint 5 there is a sharp and very distinct bend in the river. The target is on the east side, or on the far side of that bend. Then you are looking for that bend in the river. A river is pretty easy to spot. In DCS they are often not frozen over, so the river is still visible even during winter campaigns and missions. You find that river, you find that bend in the river. Okay. Next layer, how do I peel off another layer? There is a power line on that side of the river, and the target is east of that power line. Those power lines have a bend in it, some distinct point on the power line, because power line in itself is just the same. They are so repetitive that you can spot out a single one. You can start counting the poles or pylons, but yeah, good luck. I spot waypoint 5, bend in the river, notch or direction change in the power lines. That's another layer. At that bend in the power lines, there is a small cluster of trees. Let's say 200 trees. I spot that, and I know because the target is shooting at me and it's artillery, it would be in cover. Therefore, it is highly likely that the artillery piece is on the enemy side, on the far side of that river. Of that cluster of trees. Because that means when the artillery is shooting, the smoke dissipates before it rises above the trees. The trees mask the sound, and the ground is not stirred up that easily because of the trees. So less dust. So okay, we have spotted the waypoint 5, river bend, direction change on nuts in power lines, cluster of trees, the enemy side of that cluster of trees, and then we are looking for the artillery piece itself. Okay. One way to observe correctly for a target is that this is a trick I learned in the army during my military training. I was two and a half years in the Royal Danish Army, deployed to Iraq, NATO Response Force certified. Mechanized infantry, Panzergrenadier, Panzerinfanterist in Danish. And you learn how to observe, how to spot targets. And let's say we have that artillery piece. It is a, let's say, 2S3 artillery piece. Okay. Then we are looking for a square, a box, a box with a lump or a nipple on one of the ends of that square of that box, because you are not looking for the 2F3, you are looking for a square box, the silhouette. Always think silhouettes. If you look for certain amount of rope wheels, turret placement and so on, then you will look too hard. You will overload your brain and your eyes with information, and then you can miss it. The simpler and more broader you look and spot, the easier and more relaxed you're looking for the target. So look for a elongated box with a lump or nipple on the back of it or at one end of it. That is much easier for the eyes and brain to see and to filter out. And how do you spot that box? Well, once again, use the onion. Let's say there's an onion inside this onion. Three ways you can spot it. Either by using sensors. In the Su-25 you are not that lucky. In the 25T you have the squall and the mercury. The squall is actually really good, but it has some annoying limitations. I believe it's 80 or 85 degrees downward, 20 degrees up, left and right. That means practically you need to fly towards the target, because otherwise the sensor will gimbal out. But if you're looking at that cluster of trees, you can point your plane roughly in that direction, and therefore your sensor should be able to look at it. If it's low light conditions, you can put the mercury thermal port on. One note about thermal and flares. There is a common mistake even among famous knowledgeable YouTubers that think that thermal sees heat. In no way, any shape or form does thermal shows heat. Thermal shows temperature differences. You may think, well, that's the same. No, it's not. It is not the same. I have been trained in using thermals, and I've been trained in avoiding thermals. To hide from a thermal, you need to have the exact same temperature as your surroundings. Then, because the thermal sees differences, no, it doesn't see, it shows differences, then you will not be able to spot those differences on your monitor, on your screen, because the difference between you and the surroundings are too small, they're too narrow, so it's camouflaging you, just like good camouflage against a woodland. So thermals are good if there is enough temperature differences between the objects you are looking for, and its surroundings. And the last one that we all have, no matter the module, is the Mark 1 eyeball. Many people use zoom levels, even in dogfights, and I don't care if whatever YouTuber you are, using zoom levels in dogfights or while maneuvering violently or sharply in helicopters or in planes is just utter stupidity. It's unrealistic. It's yeah, yes, it's highly unrealistic. Yes, it's very convenient and it's super nice to have that ability, but I do not play a game or simulate DCS because it's easy. I do it because it's hard. Using binoculars and zoom levels against ground targets, that is highly realistic and has been used since 1916, since the day and dawn of military aviation and even civilian. So that is fine. Just not when maneuvering sharply or violently. So now we are at the almost core of the onion. We have the waypoint, we have the river bend, we have the knots in the power lines, change of direction in the power lines, we have the cluster of trees, we have the compass direction of the cluster of the trees. Now we are looking for the vehicle. We have found the vehicle, and because we are looking for a elongated box with a lump at one end of it, and it has a very long barrel, a long pointy thing, then we know it's the 2S3 artillery piece. And one thing that is easy to see if it's enemy or not, does it point towards you? Yes. Okay, enemy. So it's so simple, so that's the way it is. If you're spotting for let's say AAA emplacement, the ground emplacement we have in DCS, instead of looking for two 23mm cannons, always look for the circle, because the emplacement are surrounded by a circle of sandbags. Consider that emplacement a mini onion. Do not look for two pointy things. Do not look for two 23mm cannons. Look for a perfect circle that is above the ground, that is often placed a bit far out from buildings and in open places. When you spotted that circle thing, is it just a pond? Is it something civilian? Then you look inside, you peel off a layer, you go inside it. Okay, something is moving inside, in the center of it. Does it has a pointy thing? Can you see one or two? Yes. Okay. Then it most likely is emplacement. Does it look at you? Yes. Does it flash? Yes. Does things come flying at you? Yes. Okay. Confirmed enemy. So it's that simple. So, and because I'm looking for the silhouette of the emplacement, and I'm not looking for sandbags placed in a circle. I'm looking for the silhouette. That way I often have easier to spot the targets than people who are looking for sandbags in a circle with a 23mm AAA emplacement inside it. So that's the onion mentality. That's how I spot targets in DCS without all those fancy stuff. So quick recap. Waypoint 5, river bend, change of direction, power lines, cluster of trees, east side of cluster of trees, elongated square box with a lump or nipple on one of the ends, long barrel, yes, points towards me, or the own units, our units, yes. Okay, most likely an enemy, so kill it. And if the unit is that placement, look for a circle, a perfect circle. Does it have anything moving inside of it? Yes, it does. Perhaps it doesn't. But does it have pointy things? Yes, it does. Let's take a closer look. Those things, they have a guy sitting behind them, a gunner? Yes, it does. Okay, perhaps that's the emplacement. When you get good at it and you get experience, you can do all those things within a few seconds. If you find for the artillery piece, you can, if you got the Su-25T on the autopilot, then use all the time from waypoint 4 to waypoint 5 to narrow down the area you're looking for. It could be that the first are easier to spot far out than the river bend. It's depend on the render quality and settings in game, but always use those time to spot targets, know your area. If I get shot at by the enemy from there, where will I evade to? Will I break left or break right? Always have those plans ahead. Always prepare yourself as much as possible. Never waste your time, because if you need to know where to break when the missile is firing at you, perhaps you're wasting 2 or 3 seconds and then you die, because you didn't know in your head that if I see a white contrail from the ground, pull left, pull right. You need to know that beforehand. So that is again the onion mentality. But I think this is enough, and I hope I explained it well enough. If not, I may visualize it a bit better. But thank you for listening, and I hope it is useful. Take care.